So thank you so much. We're going for the last sessions for the day. And apologies once again. We know in the morning there were some delays that resulted in sessions starting later than others. And thank you for still being on board in spite of all that. So we're going to have a little icebreaker to set the scene for the afternoon, to help us get energized. And it's another amazing, amazing poem by the amazing poets we had in the morning. So she's doing another round of amazing poetry before we move to the last session. So I'd like to invite Sitawa Namwalie to come again. A round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Okay, you can hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Vicky, and thank you all of you for the coming back and again to listen to me. And I also want to acknowledge and thank you for the incredible work that you're doing. I saw a large check that went to Kenya. I'm very happy. Okay. Today, as we were told, this is International Africa Day, is it not? And so therefore, let us celebrate this incredible continent that gave birth to all of us. You are all Africans, we are all Africans. So this poem is called Queen Africa, Queen of the World. I wrote it when I imagined, what would Africa say if it could speak to us? So here goes. You will all know what Africa would say if it could speak to us. You call me Queen Africa? Correction, I am Queen of the World. Does my bold speaking leave you somewhat surprised? Good. I'm glad for your shock. Get ready for more. I am giving you notice. Enough has been said. Centuries listening to words ooze from your mouth, making claims on my silence as if I were dull. I am tired of oaths extolling one virtue, making me out to be only Barack Obama's poor mama. I'm drained of being seen as a good little thing, so true, so pure, so long-suffering. Oh, please. You leave me bristling with your language of pain, your surprising poor wit, and your repeating and repeating and repeating expression. Long years have I waited for unveiled gaze to grasp the breath of my unveiled gaze. To spot the swish in my eager round hips and count the fruit of my inquisitive mind. Instead, you stole my acclaim. I will do it myself. Speak up and be heard. I am African Queen, Queen of the world. Watch me sashay down history, seducing the crowds. See me merciless siren in the arms of your man. Remember Queen Sheba, who stole foreign kings? She was I. I shaped grand inventions from wind, sun, and rain, built pyramids, populated continents, invoked lullabies, awoke human thought. My long neck grew graceful from balancing time, my back strong and firm, nursing tendrils on rock. What can I not do? What can I not do? All hail Queen Africa, Queen of the world. All hail Queen Africa, Queen of the world. Thank you.
Oh, hail Queen Africa, Queen of the world. Did I get it right? All right, another round of applause for the amazing poet Sitawa. Just another announcement before the next session. Again, for those of us who've just joined, there's a pair of glasses missing. In case you've misplaced your glasses, they'll be at the registration desk, so you can pick them from there. So, whoops. Apologies. So we're rounding up the day today with our final session. As you heard in the breakout rooms, the signing ceremony will happen tomorrow. So we're going to the final session of the day. And this is a powerful session just to connect the dots and wrap up all the exciting discussions that we've been having. It's entitled Driving Finance for Inclusive Growth, Establishing Impact Investing in Kenya. And it will really look at how, in particular, the UN SDG Partnership Platform has supported a new national aggregation of financing associations to unlock a greater, picture this, greater quantum, one, diversity and quality of private capital for impact in Kenya. Quantum, diversity, and quality of private capital for impact in Kenya. And to kickstart this amazing session, we have none other than Milton Lore from Open Capital. Are you in the room? Yes, and we can even snap for him to be, since we've come from poetry, over to you to invite your panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Oh, hail Queen Africa, Queen of the world. I think this, is particularly important today because today is Africa Day, May 25th, the day that African unity was first established in 1963. So thank you for that powerful message. As I came in just before lunch and during the lunch session, I was reminded why these convenings are so important, because in just a space of an hour, got to see and meet a lot of old friends and acquaintances, but also meet new ones, and new ones not just from the local environment but also from other countries. So just want to take this opportunity to thank the conveners of this event for bringing us together and for really putting forward a powerful agenda that will not just leave us with conversations to discuss here, but also give us homework to take back to our respective organizations, our respective countries, and institutions. And so, without further ado, I take this opportunity to invite the panelists on this for this session, which has already been mentioned to you is driving finance for inclusive growth and introducing the establishment of impact investing Kenya. And as has been mentioned, my name is Milton Lore. I serve as head of partnerships for a Pan-African management consulting and strategic advisory firm, Open Capital. So joining me on the stage this afternoon will be Kaneka Yadav, the Africa Director from Intellecap, Eva Warigia from the East African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, where she's CEO. Dr. Habil Olaka, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Bankers Association. Hatuchi Kasandi, the East African Regional Chapter Manager for the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, ANDE. Peter Oumaolo, CEO of the Social Enterprise Society of Kenya. And then last but not least, Lee Karuri, Chair of FINTRINET and a trustee, and as well as immediate past chair of the KEPSA Foundation. In terms of how we intend to run this session, each of the panelists will address a number of questions that I will pose as moderator. Our hope is that thereafter there'll be an opportunity to have engagement with the audience and for you to provide interventions, comments, and questions, and that this conversation should be as interactive as possible. Before we go into the session substantively, I would like to invite Arif Neki, the coordinator of the SDG Partnership Platform in Kenya, to provide some background context on the work that has been done so far towards establishing the Impact Invest in Kenya platform. Arif?
Thank you, Milton, and I must say for me this is a real milestone moment. This is a Kodak moment. We've spent 2.5 years behind the scenes having discussions with financing networks in Kenya of all types, some of the leading associations. And the idea was to say, can we create an aggregate of associations in financing that can actually create some kind of an ecosystem institution in Kenya to drive some very important objectives. And I'm delighted that we have such a important and credible array of all the key financing associations in Kenya here before you. So I think I know it's the graveyard shift after lunch, but I'd really like you to put your hands together and applaud this amazing panel. And Milton, thanks so much for taking up the challenge to be our esteemed moderator. So I'll just basically speak from the vantage point of having been one of the people and others here who had this vision of how do we bring the providers of private capital together? How do we look at issues around policy that everyone's grappling with, the enabling environment, legal, fiscal environment to unlock more private capital? And every association does that, but how do we do it together where we can actually create a much stronger movement? How do we entice a lot of the portfolio managers to move towards impact? How do we think about complementing public financing, which, as you know, in Kenya, and I would love to hear from the other countries, is hugely strapped with debt service and recurrent salaries. So discretionary SDG financing is actually minimal, notwithstanding the wonderful aspirations, announcements, and targets that we all set. We have a few years to meet our 2030 targets on the SDGs. How on earth are we going to do that with very limited financing that's public? So the idea here is to complement private capital with public capital for the public good. And the opportunity is not just around the enabling environment, but to be a lot more coordinated on how we do this. How do we look at the application of funds to ensure that those investments that we get behind actually impact some of the people that we want to impact the most? So how do we create inclusive economic growth and not just, very nice GDP numbers, which ultimately mask 40% of Kenyans below the poverty line? So we have 2 or 3 Kenyas here. How do we make sure we have one prosperous Kenya going forward? And so I think there's some fairly lofty ambitions here and aspirations here, and I think with patience, persistence, goodwill, expertise, integrity, everyone's come together to say, look, we all need to be part of something bigger than our own associations or our own jobs and our own functions. And for that, I'm really delighted, because this is also going to be ideally one of the first few impact investing ecosystem players in Africa. We have one in South Africa, one in Nigeria, one in Zambia, one in Ghana. So this will be the 5th one that we want to basically launch today. And this will be also part of a configuration that is in engagement with the global GSG, the steering group, which is a G7 initiative that supports about 30 such organizations globally. So ultimately, we will also be doing a more formal launch with the GSG once we run through their processes. But for now, the impact revolution in Kenya, the train has left the station. And these are the champions that are moving impact in Kenya. A lot of things are happening, a lot of amazing initiatives are going on. We're delighted, for example, about the $7 million development impact bond and the co-financing that we're trying to close on. Each of these leaders have amazing work that they're already doing, and they have, in some cases, hundreds and more members. And there are many other task force members that are not here today. So after about 2.5 years of sort of being asked to be a chairman of a task force to try and bring a lot of this thinking together, I'm delighted that we should be this year in a position to officially launch an institution that can create its own governance structure, that can have a democratic governance process, that can create the ownership across Kenyan society, across financial markets, across government institutions, private institutions, to really make a difference. And given that aspiration, for us in the UN and the SDG Partnership Platform, it's music to our ears, because ultimately it's about convening, connecting, and catalyzing financing, investments, and networks. That sentence is our 30-second elevator speech. And we want to stay very focused on that. And we want to move this down from UN General Assembly meetings, concept notes, ministry notes, session papers, target papers, plans, to concrete investments on the ground, innovative instruments, investments, opening up pools of funding, deploying the kind of capital we need to drive Kenya's transformation. And as a middle-income country with grants shrinking, with ODA shrinking, with donors going from aid to trade, you've heard this for the last 1.5 days, private capital is critical. And that includes also philanthropic capital as very important, nimble, agile seed capital that can oftentimes help us to unlock greater private capital for scale. And this is not about small pilots, and this is not about, as I said, puffs of excellence in a sea of deprivation. This is about scale and systems influence in the long term, beyond short-term grant cycles and political cycles. So very excited to be here, very excited, and I thank every member here for their commitment. It's taken a huge amount of work and effort, and it's ongoing, for all the excellent work they're doing here. And we look forward to also connecting this ecosystem with ecosystem in other countries in Africa. We've got resident coordinators here from a number of African countries. We've got teams from a number of countries. We have a session tomorrow within the UN family to really see how we might think about some opportunities that we can scale up much more broadly in multiple countries. So I thank you all for your time, your attention, and look forward to this session. And if you need further information, we've got Kimathi, part of our team at the back there. He'll be happy to put you on our circulation list and share more information. Thanks very much, and back to you, Milton.
Thank you very much, Arif. I think on behalf of the task force that's been working towards impact investing Kenya, I'd like to thank you, as well as the SDG Partnership Platform, for the stewardship role that you've played over the last nearly 4 years. It's sometimes a bit of a thankless task, but thank you for keeping the fire burning. As Arif mentioned, Impact Investing Kenya is intended to be a global platform, acting locally but participating globally within a network of peer platforms. Coincidentally, this week, the Global Steering Group on Impact Investing has convened a leadership summit that's taking place in Turin, Italy, and where interesting conversations around impact investing are occurring. Terms such as impact accounting and a host of other things are being discussed. And so as we sort of turn our attention to our conversation here, I think it's also, I think for a lot of us in the room, impact investing is not a new term. But I think it's important that we are on the same wavelength. And with that, I want to invite Kanika Yadav to really just provide a bit of context in terms of impact investing, and the difference between other forms of risk capital investing, and putting it into context in the Kenyan environment. How large is impact investing in Kenya? Kanika?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Milton, and thanks a lot, everyone, for attending this session. So to answer your question, Milton, what exactly is impact investing? Most of the investments that are done, they create impact in some form or the other. Then how is the impact investing different? The difference is that the impact investors, when they are investing, they are harnessing the power of their capital to create positive, measurable, and social and environmental impact. So the intention of investing with impact is very, very critical. And it's not just that you invest and then understand the impact of it. And so therefore, for the impact investors, the thesis of investing with this impact is from the very beginning, as they're identifying the deal flow, they're making sure that the impact being created is positive and measurable. Once they have invested into the businesses or into a particular venture, then they are also measuring the impact that is being created, that particular investment. And then they're using the impact performance measurement of the performance of the impact to even scale the impact that is being created. So it's very intentional, and that is sort of a difference from the other investors who may be creating an impact but not intentionally. And how is it different from the philanthropy also is that impact investment, basically when you are investing, you are looking for both social as well as the financial returns. So it's not that you are giving the capital and it is creating a lot of return in terms of the social returns, but it is not creating financial returns. Impact investment is also different in a way that it is creating at least market rate or below market rates returns, financial returns, and they are using their sort of investment capital to grow the more and more capital that is going into the impact investment space. So intentionality, measurement of the impact, and generating the financial as well as the social returns are the key characteristics of an impact investment. And then to answer your second question, Milton, in terms of what is the scale of impact investment in Kenya. So we at Intellecap actually conducted a study, which is now a couple of years old, but still it gives some idea of the scale of impact investment in Kenya. And as that we identify, as a part of that, we identified various types of capital providers, including DFIs, Ps, VCs, impact investors, and even the corporate social investors who are now starting to deploy their capital as impact capital. And through that, we were able to identify that between 2015 and 2019, upwards of $6 billion of capital was invested in Kenya as impact capital. And I suppose in the last few years that a few $1 billion will have already been added to that number. So the scale is, we can definitely see the scale of impact capital in Kenya. But at the same time, I will also say that there is a lot more demand for that capital. If you, as Arif was saying about the SDGs and about the different Kenya that exist within the Kenya itself, so there is a lot of requirement of the capital that can be invested with the impact lens, so that the GDP increase in the GDP is actually trickled down to each and every person within the country. So yeah, I'll just wrap up my conversation with this. Yeah. Back to you, Milton.
Thank you very much, Kanika, for providing that context. I'll now turn my attention to the money people, those with cash in their pockets and in their hands. Eva represents the East Africa Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. Habil Olaka, the Kenya Bankers Association. And the next set of questions are posed to you, building off what Kanika has shared in terms of your perspective regarding how the ecosystem has evolved, how has the role of different actors changed, who might have left the market and who is entering, and does local capital find impact investing relevant? So a bit of a mouthful, but Eva, maybe you first, followed by Hannah.
Wow. Thank you, Milton. I actually don't have money in my pocket right now. It's on M-Pesa though. So shout out to the banks for the M-Pesa platform. So in terms of impact capital, I think given the context of private equity and venture capital, where we're coming from is, if you look at the origins of private equity and venture capital, it started largely funded by development finance institutions, DFIs, into Africa. It was around early 2000s as we were trying to move the conversation from aid or deployment of aid to trade and multilateral agencies being more deliberate in commercializing their engagement with the African continent. So the first instance of impact was development capital, which was to lay the infrastructure to allow for commercialization of investment into the African continent and even in East Africa and Kenya. With time, a lot has happened, much has evolved. Development still remains a key agenda of private equity, venture capital investors in this region. We acknowledge that playing, especially within the growth SME space, there's a lot of work to be done to upskill those entities that we target for investment. For us, we define SMEs as companies with about $15 million in annual revenue, less than 20 actually, employees, but are on the growth track. So if you think of that profile of a company, it's a young business, relatively 15 to 20 years old, maybe, and trying its best to expand its market base. So in terms of measuring impact, we started with the obvious, which is job creation. And then we looked at how does job creation and scaling of companies contribute to economic development. So the second measurement becomes economic development. And with every private capital investment, one of the things you'll notice is they will scale the businesses, and by extension, they'll hire more people and be able to pay more taxes. So those were the initial matrices of measuring impact. The third one was governance, and Kanika talked about this. So the social, I think, would be under the employment and economic development. Governance, being equity investors, a lot of the times we will take a position in the company. We want to improve, corporatize some of the entities we get ourselves into partnership with. So if it's a venture startup company that's receiving venture funding or institutional funding for the first time, they may not have the right governance structures, probably no board. It's an entrepreneur, a techie often, who has an idea, and probably a business person, development person, or commercial person to help them go to market. So we put in the structure. So governance becomes the third metrics that we would measure in that instance. And then the final one, and which is now increasingly becoming the top priority, is the environmental perspective. Especially working in Africa, we cannot discount the influence of environmental factors on day-to-day business. A lot of the businesses that private capital funds tend to be in the agro-processing industrial area. And by that extension, we need to stabilize the environmental factors to ensure productivity and growth of those industries. And then in recent times, there's been a lot of influence on green financing, in part because of the kind of partners that private capital works with in this market. So climate financing, green financing has sort of overtaken the priority of impact in Africa, East Africa to date, to where it's now one of the leading agendas of capital deployment. So in climate financing, we're looking at how do we mainstream environment preservation as part of our investment and business strategies. And there's very many ways that our businesses are doing this. It's in e-mobility for companies that are investing in infrastructure and logistics companies. For digital companies, it's seeing how do we reduce the footprint of, say, crypto and those blockchain, the energy that's consumed there. Increasingly, we're seeing carbon credit trading as an avenue of raising capital to invest in local companies. One of the successful areas for impact investing has been renewable energy. I think the success story for Kenya would be M-Kopa, Cocoa Networks, among others. So there's a lot more that private capital is doing. There's one more that I forgot that was a measure of impact, continues to be gender and inclusivity. It's rather funny that I forgot it myself. But yeah, as an aspect of promoting inclusive business practice, we have gender smart strategies that investment capital has been applying in this region to try and upskill the women-owned enterprises and also support the female consumer ecosystem. So between gender, environment, governance, job creation, there's a whole lot of impact strategies that private capital deploys. I don't think there's any that's left the building. I will say that the prioritization shifts given the point in time. At the moment, it's climate financing is a really active one. Inclusive financing, not just gender, but inclusive. Supporting indigenous companies is another big one that we are adopting.
Thank you very much, Eva. So maybe Abel, we could tackle the big question around local capital and the extent to which it finds impact investing relevant and speaking to their business and other objectives.
Okay.
Abel?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was a bit worried because, as you mentioned, the question was quite a mouthful, and I was not quite sure where to focus my attention on. But thank you for that guidance. Now, I think the question about whether the local capital find impact investing relevant, I think it is a definite yes. And this is premised on the understanding that there is a clear correlation between financial returns and entities that would, participate for purposes of the social and environmental good. So with that clear correlation between the financial returns and the kind of activity that the entities in is focusing on, I think it's a no-brainer for one to see that there's a clear benefit, or there's a clear financial return for the investor who is specifically looking for investment in entities that are focused on social and environmental good in the society. And I think I liked what my colleague mentioned about the fact that that investment is intentional. It is deliberate. It's not by accident that you invest in an entity and then it has got some positive impact, and therefore you score yourself. I think it is a deliberate and intentional approach where you're looking for specific investment opportunities that promise that, that outcome. Now, on the other hand, for the investors that do not specifically look out for the social and environmental good, I think there is the downside to it, in the sense that you risk quite a bit of liabilities and penalties and even reputational risk in the event that you, for lack of a better word, misplace your money, in the sense that you're putting money in entities that are not focused on these areas. So the probability of, finding yourself having to incur liabilities, regulatory compliance becomes a major issue, especially if the entity is operating within the regulated environment. The probability of being stuck with stranded assets is quite a very huge possibility. And of course, given the liabilities, there's quite a possibility that you may incur quite a bit of financial loss. And of course, all that diminishes your financial return at the end of the day in terms of the return on investment. So it makes logic of the fact that impact investing, I think, is quite relevant for us, and especially in our environment in Kenya. Now, if I can just make some few comments, if you allow me, on the other issue raised about the challenges. And I think that's a very relevant thing for us here. I think one of the challenges that I would identify is the fact that investors struggle to find viable projects to place their investments in. And this is not just for impact investors. I think it is for all investors that are trying to look for investable opportunities. It's even worse for impact investors, partly because, as we mentioned, they're deliberate, they're looking for something. And it even becomes much more difficult to find viable investable opportunities in that kind of an environment. So I think the project sponsors, in this case, we're talking about the social entrepreneurs, I think they need to ensure that they're investment ready before starting that journey of looking for potential investors. I think that goes without saying. And also linked to the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, going back to the point of the fact that it's a deliberate process where you are looking for some specific investment opportunities, I think the due diligence process tends to take much longer than ordinarily projects will take. And as much as we know that due diligence process takes a much longer time, but is even longer for the impact investment area. And therefore, a process that takes between 12 to 18 months. One is that by that time, the investor has missed out on a number of other opportunities that could have arisen. But also from the investee perspective, most probably the market may have moved. The opportunity that you had at the time when you're starting the project proposal may have moved by the time the investment appraisal is done and you're now accessing the funding. So that's, I think, a major complication. And then finally, there is the issue of the fact that a number of the investors tend to be foreign currency based, yet most of the opportunities, especially on the domestic scene, the investable opportunities will be in domestic currency. The returns will be in domestic currency. Now, if the investor is looking for returns and basing their expectations on the foreign currency, there is a clear mismatch in terms of what's available and what the anticipation is. So that then creates a challenge to the two sides of the investment arena. And of course, linked to that, I think my final point would be the fact that there's therefore a shortage of investment instruments in the market that will be able to bridge between the investable opportunities and the investors. Thank you.
Thank you, Habil and Eva, for providing, I guess, a representative view of the capital holders and allocators. Katuchi, we are in a session talking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. How does impact investing relate with the SDGs? And then sort of linked to that, as from the perspective of the ANDE East Africa chapter, how do you see the impact frontiers moving either into new impact sectors or is the priority to achieve scale geographically or through other means?
Thank you, Milton. For those that haven't interacted with ANDE before, we are a global network of member organizations, and the members within the organizations support small and growing businesses. And we do this by providing a platform for intermediaries that work with small and growing businesses to connect, to network, to access financial and knowledge resources, and as well as for us to basically advocate for them. So when it comes to the topic of how do we see impact investing engaging with sustainable development goals, as Kanika said at the beginning, when you are an impact investor, you're very intentional about deploying capital with the goal of getting both a financial and a social return. So if we even just leave it at that basic level, the social returns could be that you're looking for could be anything that is within the Sustainable Development Goal framework. But as a network, within ANDE, we have identified a couple of Sustainable Development Goals that we help our members to actually align their work with. And for context, when I talk about our members, yes, we do have impact investors within the network, but we have commercial investors, we have development financial institutions, accelerators, incubators, management consulting firms, amongst others. But for the purposes of this work, I'll stick to impact investors. So at ANDE, the three target areas within the Sustainable Development Goals that we've identified include gender equality, which was mentioned by Eva earlier on. We also have climate and environmental action, that was mentioned earlier on by Eva. And then finally, we have a focus on decent work. When it comes to gender equality, how we are supporting the impact investors actually engage with sustainable development goals is through three ways. So first, we are supporting the impact investors within the network to support women-owned businesses, and through obviously financing them. And then the second piece, we are helping them promote gender inclusive practices amongst these small and growing businesses. And then finally, we are helping impact investors to actually scale small and growing businesses that are gender inclusive. And for us, when you're thinking about business models that are gender inclusive, we are thinking about business models, businesses that are owned by women, businesses that have an appropriate proportion of women within their governance structures. We're also thinking about businesses that have women as employees and women within their supply chains. And finally, businesses that have a product or service that targets women as an end user. At ANDE, we do not just stop at working with investors to help them have the right technical and financial support to scale these business models or support businesses within the gender inclusive space, but we are also ensuring that they have access to the right impact measurement metrics that they can align their work with. So we have borrowed some of that from the Sustainable Development Goals framework, but we've also gone further to borrow some metrics from the Global Impact Investing IRIS framework to make them more private sector focused. So for example, some of the metrics that you'll be tracking amongst our investor members to check if they are, not to check sounds more of like a chaperone, to basically support them as they implement with a gender inclusive perspective include every year through our surveys, we actually get to track the amount of capital that is going to early stage businesses that are gender inclusive. We are also tracking the sort of like the kind of gender inclusive policies that are being put in place within sustainable development, within small and growing businesses by the investors that are working within our network. And then finally, we are also keeping track on what are some, like the number of female employees that they are bringing on board as a result of the work that they are doing. Over and beyond that, we have, as I mentioned, a huge climate focus. And within our climate focus, again, we have identified ways in which investors could actually align their work with the Sustainable Development Goals. And for us, the first one around that is how are investors themselves looking within to increase their environmental sustainability within their own systems. And with that, we are also supporting them to think through how are they, for example, supporting their entire portfolio to become sustainable and not just the portfolio companies that are focused on climate areas. Over and beyond that, we are also helping them to support and scale businesses that are focused on climate adaptation. And with that, we are looking at what are some of the climate smart sort of interventions that exist there. What are some of the what are some of the small and growing businesses that are involved in, for example, disaster management and issues around flooding, etc. And then at the top of it, we are also looking at providing a platform for investors to support and scale small and growing businesses that are involved in mitigation of climate change. And within that, we are looking at all the small and growing businesses that have products and services that are green, and they are geared towards either, increasing the use of renewable energy, improving water use, improving improving and reuse of, say, waste, amongst others. So there are so many ways in which I could highlight in which we are supporting our investors to engage with SDGs, but I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to come back to that later during Q&A. Over to you, Milton.
Thank you very much, Katuchi. I think the three SDGs that you spoke into, I think the decent work probably resonates loudest for Africa, given our youthful population and the fact that it's growing every day, in addition to gender and climate. Peter from the Social Enterprise Society of Kenya. We've heard quite a bit about the state of play of impact investing, where it's been, where it is today. We'd be grateful to hear your perspective on what you see as the next steps that impact investing should be taking in driving towards the coming years and the associated opportunities that impact investors and others in the space should be looking at. And as you answer that from a Kenyan context, it would also be interesting to just give us a glimpse of some of the trends that you and others are seeing from other regions in relation to self-regulation, advocacy, as well as establishment of stakeholder platforms. Peter?
Thank you, Milton. I'm Peter Ono, CEO, Social Enterprise Society of Kenya, which is the umbrella body for people who run businesses for social impact. Milton, I'll look at the whole discussion around three angles. One is what the UN framework has done in terms of the UN, what are called the UN PRIs, the United Nations Principles of Responsible Investment. If you look at the 10 social themes within the UN PRI, inclusive finance is one of the key items that has been really tacked on. And we as social enterprises in Kenya, we have already realized that Kenya and even many countries in Africa are focusing on impact economy. And for you to be an impact economy, you need to really look at the triple helix. The triple helix, looking at the risk, looking at the return, and looking at the impact. We are aware of the, Revolution 4.0, and many of us are moving from the tech revolution. Currently, many of us are moving towards impact revolution, and we as social enterprise, we are trying to see how do we align ourselves with the new revolution, which is called impact revolution. So social enterprises, one of the key things we focus on is how do we help social enterprises to align our business models with the 17 SDGs. And if you look at even the UN practical responsible investment, the principles of responsible investment is trying to align the SDGs to the 10 themes. And we are also using that in terms of helping social enterprises to align our business model towards working on the SDGs. Now, come back to your other key question is that what are the current trends? I think impact revolution is currently the way to go, and that is why we, Social Enterprise Society of Kenya, when we were invited to be part of the NAB task force, we said that yes, because we are currently working on social enterprise policy, which currently in Kenya is really advanced, is at the Ministry of Industrialization. We said that yes, I think this is the right time to be part of the, the part of the game, so that you can be able to drive the whole agenda about impact revolution. In terms of trends, I've just looked at the market map, which has been released by the UN, the UN Global Compact. And it's talking about, a lot of many businesses, to be sure is about 1,905 businesses or impact investors are already signing the UN pledge that yes, we want to be impact investors. So I think the current trend is to go with the UN direction whereby, signing, and I think the asset base is about 90 billion in terms of investments and funders that are signing the UN pledge. So that is the way to go, and I think many impact investors, not only in Africa but around the world, is so that you are listed within the UN PRI index, which is because we social enterprises, when we are advising businesses, is that if you want an impact investor to invest in your business, then we refer them to the index, so that when you are listed within the UN PRI index, then yes, you are a true impact investor. I could have forgotten something, but I think, Milton, that is all I wanted to share.
Thank you very much, Peter. Lee Karuri, what does one say about this gentleman? But I think the one connection between Impact Investing Kenya and the work that Lee Karuri and others have done in building networks of networks and I'll probably allow him to speak for himself, but prior to KEPSA coming into being, Kenya's private sector spoke multiple voices shouting in the same room, speaking the same language, but probably less coherently than they do today. I think the hope behind and the drive behind Impact Investing Kenya is to do something similar for the impact investing community in Kenya. Not that there are people not singing and spreading the gospel of impact investing, but it needs to be heard louder, it needs to be much more coherent, and it needs to influence. It needs to influence multiple stakeholders at the same time in order to achieve more than we can do individually. So Lee, from your vantage point, having been involved in formations of multiple networks of different stakeholders, engaging with public, private sector, inviting you to provide some thoughts around the establishment of Impact Investing Kenya, and to provide not just us at the podium, but others in the audience with maybe some nuggets of wisdom based on the experiences and successes, as well as failures that you might have encountered along the way, locally and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Milton. As you have heard, my name is Lee Karuri, very keen on matters of socio-economic development for Kenya and Africa. And this agenda on social impact in investment is a very dear one to me, because it's coming to answer a great need in our nation. And Arif, thank you very much for leading NAB, which is able to bring this network of all of us together. I would like to say that from my experience, I've been involved in private sector development engagement with our government for a long time, and trying to see the best way to get results. The best way to get results is having a unified voice, having a common purpose. And the social impact investment agenda is becoming a new emerging opportunity for transformation for Kenya today. But it is our business to bring this clarity to our government, to bring the value proposition to the citizens and to the development partners. Because we might assume, as we sit in this room, that everybody understands the opportunity and the potential for social impact investment. That is not the case. We have had sittings with our government on various matters, and we need to be able to position this sector as very important in our national development agenda. And therefore, when we have come here together and looking at the opportunity of investing Kenya and the way we can collaborate, we can be able to present ourselves to government and make them a partner so that we can be able to be provided an enabling environment for this sector to thrive. Because an enabling environment will come from the executive, through Parliament, Senate, and other organs of state. And therefore, out of the efforts that we have, I see a huge opportunity in collaboration with our government so that we journey this on a partnership model together with the county governments. And we'll be able to do something that can be able to transform our nation. And as I conclude, we have been doing we move around this country. We have also been looking at what is pressing Kenya most. And you'll see that it is social issues such as employment, lack of jobs, livelihood issues, lack of access to clean water, matters of sanitation, energy. The basic issues that Kenyans demand is where we need to focus our investment, where the impact will be highest. And I believe that through a coordinated approach, if we can be able to link our effort, aligning with Vision 2030, aligning with the MTP3 and MTP4, aligning with SDG goals, and showing the value proposition, I know that we'll be able to not only attract private equity or private capital, but we'll get our government to be our partner and create an enabling environment. Because we need incentives, we need the right policies, we need support for us to do our very best. And we are prepared, using this platform, to create that partnership that can accelerate this effort to maximize this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee, for that sharing. Before I invite the audience questions or comments, just wanted to share my own experience, building off what Lee has mentioned, my own experience of traveling around recently. I had the good fortune of attending the AfriCities Summit in Kisumu last week, courtesy of some work, investment attraction work that Open Capital is involved in. And in fact, my boss on that engagement is seated in the room. But on the sidelines of AfriCities in Kisumu, I also had the opportunity to visit an interesting business operating in Kisumu last Friday. This business is in the business of transport, public transport. A lot of us who live and work in Nairobi take transport for granted, whether we use our own vehicles or whether we use public means, buses, Uber, or others. But think about yourself as the inhabitant of an island in Lake Victoria. How readily available and accessible is transport if you want to move yourself You want to move your family members from that island to the mainland or to another island. If you want to move not just yourself and family members, but you want to move goods, livestock, or others. And so water bus that I visited in Kisumu is an interesting impact business, because they're in the business of providing transport to unserved and underserved communities living on islands in Lake Victoria, providing them with regular transport, accessibility, and really enabling livelihoods, what Lee was alluding to. And doing so in ways that we can't even imagine. And so as I think about the 2 hours that I spent with the water bus team in Kisumu, talking about what they do, but also other things that they do, including building of vessels using local manpower and local materials. That sort of business is the sort of business that Impact Investing Kenya wants to grow and scale, so that we're not just talking about tens of those businesses, but hundreds and thousands, looking at multiple beneficiaries in more ways than one. And so with that, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite participation from our audience. Just wanted to check whether there are any roving mics in the house, but if any of you may have a question or a comment to raise, we'll invite those now and probably take 2 or 3 at the same time. And for purposes of protocol, we'll just request that as you ask your question, you introduce yourself and share a bit about your affiliation, and kindly keep your intervention short, concise, and crisp, directing it to a specific speaker or speakers if appropriate. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chipo. I work for UNFPA. My question can be addressed to any one of the speakers, but I wanted to understand in terms of when we speak of impact investing versus the SDGs, in the spirit of leaving no one behind within the UN, is you're trying to really get the beneficiaries, those are who are most vulnerable, those who are left behind. But when I think of impact investing, like when we say job creation and all, usually people who benefit are people already maybe a bit way up. They're in the city center. That's where the opportunities are. But as United Nations, in order to achieve the SDGs, we really need to hit hard. The example you're giving in Kisumu, those transport business, I'm sure they are underserved. So how do we ensure impact investing really reach those communities? As well, how do we ensure that business, the investors who are interested, really see value in reaching to those communities? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Irene Gadieka from Total Impact Capital. Quick one, this is to Lee and perhaps to Habil and Ava. I was just wondering, since there is a concerted effort to have companies focus on impact investing, is there perhaps a grading and reward system that could be found within your institutions, which is well publicized, like they do the 100 companies that's coming back now, where if you move from level A to level B of impact investing, you get some kind of recognition? Thank you.
I guess we could start there. We also had a question from our online participants, which could probably also be tackled together with the question that was raised, the first question that was raised from the floor. This question by Noli Margarita is how do impact investors support new businesses, and probably speaking to early stage companies that probably are maybe founded on the back of innovation or the startup economy. So if someone could also look to address that. So on the first question, I think that one was an open one.
I can take that.
Kanika, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for that question. And I think that's actually very, very valid to understand how the impact investing is able to create impact at the grassroots level, and the impact just doesn't remain in the main cities, urban areas and all. And I think for that, I'll also go back to the initial opening point that I have made, is that there needs to be a lot of intentionality that needs to be there in creating an impact. And I can give you an example from our work. So Intellecap is a part of a group called Avishkar Group. We have invested in about 100 plus companies across the global south, and have over like $1 billion in assets under management. And when we make investment, we make sure that we are investing in tier 2, tier 3 cities in rural areas. We purposefully look for businesses which are not in the tier 1 cities. And it is an interest for us also, because the businesses which are in the main urban areas, they already have exposure to a lot of investors, which increases the valuation of those companies as well, and which in turn means that you will get a small chunk of a pie, but you have to put a lot of money into those businesses. But at the same time, there are a lot of innovative businesses that are creating impact at the grassroots level. Obviously, it is difficult to find those businesses. So for that, you need to be very, very, have like connections with the industry bodies, associations, networks which are working at the grassroots level, and develop a pipeline or a deal flow doing that. And just to add to the other point, that how do you move from just like job creation to the other impact that is created. So if you are working in the agricultural space, yes, you are creating an employment for the farmers, but at the same time, you are also, for instance, maybe reducing the post-harvest losses through the type of the business that you're investing, which is resulting in the food security in the country or in the region. So you have to also understand the whole value chain of that business and the details till which the impact is created. And like lastly, I'll say, as impact investors, we now have to move away from measuring the outputs. A lot of time we are just measuring the outputs, like number of jobs created or number of people affected by this. Now we have to move to actually understanding the outcomes and the impact of those capital that we are investing. So for the last 20 years, we have now perfected the art of calculating the outputs. Now we have moved forward towards the actual impact. When you are making an investment, does that actually assist in improving the lives and the livelihoods of those people? Are they, if you're investing with the gender lens, is the agency of the woman increasing? All those things also needs to be measured for the impact to be more tangible in nature.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kanika, for addressing the.
Can I build on that?
Sorry?
Can
yes,
I?
You can, but I'll also, Eva, ask you to in part respond to the question raised by Irene on grading and reward, and if you may as well. Katuchi, I'll also request that you could also speak into that same question. Thanks.
So just riding along what Kanika talked about, measuring the agency and beyond just the hard numbers of jobs created. And in response to the first question, how do we ensure that we are bringing along everyone? One of the ways that venture and private equity have done is use platform companies. So it could be a well-known, regarded company that you would often find in the city area but its core audience is in the grassroots. In that aspect, and I give a very good example of private equity success in Kenya, which is a commercial bank, Equity Bank. Equity Bank, for those who are not local, is tier 1, largest by customer base bank in Kenya, and has a regional footprint, but the core audience of Equity Bank is actually not corporate. It's the entrepreneur, it's the SME, by the definition I gave, the real business. So in that sense, what that investor, because Equity Bank was actually funded by private equity, what they did is identify a company that has the traction to create agency and roots in the grassroots. Another very good example would be in fintech, ASEC, which is an on-lending fintech company in Uganda. Now, ASEC is based in Kampala, but their core audience is the farmer. They're strictly funding farmers in Uganda. So that's one way where we pull everyone along. And there's a lot across all sectors. In education, healthcare, I can think of firms like Penda Health, which have dedicated their institutions to building, what are they called? Health centers, yeah, in the densely populated community sections. So that's one way. And then Irene asked an interesting question. Is there a way to recognize impact companies as they move from one level to the next? I think different entities are doing it. At EAVCA, we do recognize those that are funded by venture and are scaling impact. So, and it doesn't have to be a startup. We actually have big companies like QuickMart, where we measure the input, or rather the contribution by engaging local suppliers, how much of their revenue came from the local supply base, right? But I do acknowledge that a lot of us need to work closer together for that, and maybe that's something that Arif and team can take up, seeing as you already have all the agencies on the platform. Just be the people who give the awards, right? And then finally, how can impact support new businesses? We, at least for my industry, a lot of the impact capital tends to be the first loss risk capital that is offered in form of grants and at concession terms, convertible note type of investment capital. And what that does is give the entrepreneur leeway and less pressure to be hardcore commercial as they try and put the impact matrices that a lot of my colleagues on stage have discussed that are relevant. But I'll let Katuchi talk more about that.
So thanks, Eva. And to just build off what you said, in our experience, one of the most important things that needs to happen for there to be a lot more activity in secondary cities is catalytic work that sometimes is supported by development partners. So in the past, we've ran a program where we were working with Global Affairs Canada, providing a technical assistance facility to investors that were investing in the LabSet corridor. One of the, and as you know, the LabSet corridor starts in Lamu, ends in Turkana. So a lot of those towns tend to be outside of the capital city. And there was such a huge issue with them finding pipeline that they could invest in. And one of the reasons that we have seen, which is really changing, to speak to the conversation about the evolution of the ecosystem, is that there wasn't an ecosystem that had been developed outside of the capital city to support companies there. So a lot of the companies who, for example, wanted to participate in accelerators, incubators as a way of becoming bankable to access impact investing capital had to travel from secondary cities to come and access that support in the capital city. But right now, we are seeing a lot of work taking place outside of the city. We have I think the Lake Hub, which is supporting the hub in the Western region. We are seeing people like Swahili Box. We are seeing entities in Nakuru coming up and starting to support entrepreneurs at the grassroots. Over and beyond that, we have also, like within the ANDE network, I would take an example like Kenya Climate Innovation Center. We've also seen them working with EU and I think Danida through their, I think it's called AgriBiz program, working with former agricultural training centers in the 8 regional blocks in Kenya to start working with young people who are setting up businesses in those communities and providing incubation services for them as a way of like sort of starting them into the impact investing value chain. So there's a lot that anyone who's on the ground and they are seeking to seek financing from, for example, an impact investor could do and could access in their secondary cities. And I would say your first point of interaction could be non-profits, like for example, TechnoServe with their microducas, VSO who also have like a youth program. And then you graduate into an incubator program where you could now come closer to now getting access to, like, for example, impact investing and private equity capital much later in the value chain. I'll pass it to Lee. There was a question that was directed to me.
Okay, thank you. There was a question about private sector. At the moment, within KEPSA, where I serve as a trustee, there is a growing recognition of business community to engage in business from a social enterprise standpoint. And we have seen quite a lot of our members, as they report to us progress on investment and their businesses, they are bringing up the way they have done social impact in the process. But what we need to do is to up that responsibility, make it an important consideration. And in fact, from the side of government, lobby for incentives for businesses that demonstrate they have met certain criteria for social impact investment. So these are some of the areas, and I believe Olo here, through the social enterprise policy that they have been working on, will check that the area of incentives is included, because that will spur more organizations from business to engage in social impact investment. There is a question about that this is an urban or a town city opportunity. I would like to say that more and more, we are going to see social impact investment around the whole concept of devolution. I had an opportunity to visit with the chairman of the Council of Governors to discuss opportunities on how we can spur development within the counties. And he told me that, we have so many delegations, visitors, private sector, investors coming through the offices of the Council of Governors. But he said, it looks like we are losing so much time here in boardrooms, taking tea with the people, but nothing on the ground. So he told me, my friend, what you need to do, all the people you meet and network, let them meet us in the counties with something tangible they want to do. These discussions in Delta Towers here are not helping. And he said the next time we meet, let it be an outbound mission to one of the counties, kickstarting an investment that can bring about transformative change in a county. And I thought that was very good a challenge. And he was saying, basically, maybe he did not have the language we are talking today. It is social impact investment programs he was asking for, that why don't you engage us at a county level, come to the counties, come with the programs, and let us be practical about opportunities that can transform our people. And I see this is a huge opportunity. And lastly, the economic blocks. We already now have organized economic blocks within ourselves through Impact Investing Kenya. We can use that as a model of partnership, and we might be the ones that will activate the economic blocks to create high level of turnaround on the ground. One of the institutions that we can also use through Impact Investing Kenya is FINTRINET. We have an organization also called Finance, Trade and Investment Network that we started that is also championing to scale up finance, trade and investment. And we are going to fit that very well within Impact Investing Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those interventions. In the interest of time, I will invite two of our panelists who didn't respond to questions to have a last word. that is Peter as well as Habel. But before I do so, probably just make an attempt to partly respond to a couple of the questions that were raised. Firstly, the one of investment beyond major cities. Incidentally, a number of market players collaborated last month on convening a Northern Kenya Impact Investment Conference that took place at the same venue as this convening. That was a place-based impact investment convening, really focusing attention of on the underserved geographic segment of the country, attended by over 400 people. That convening happened in Nairobi, but there was an assurance from the Chief Executive Officer of the Frontier Counties Development Council that the next Northern Kenya Impact Investment Conference will happen in Northern Kenya. And we will be taking and inviting investors and other participants to join in that investment safari. On the issue of grading and rewards, there are sort of a number of mechanisms for doing so internationally. B Corp, for example, is one, and there are a number of organizations from this region that have sought that accreditation. But in part, one of the challenges to impact invest in Kenya will also be to domesticate and provide some element of local, accountability and measurement, not just for businesses, but also investors. And do so not just to local standards, but also to the extent possible approximate international and global standards as well. So this indeed will be one of the intended objectives of impact investing Kenya. With that, let me invite Peter and Habil to a minute each for your closing remarks, and then we will hand back to the conveners of the event to close for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you have only given me a minute, but I wanted to just chip into one of the questions that had been raised on that issue of just address in terms of rewards and grading system. In the banking sector, we have got what we call the Sustainable Finance Initiative. And this is an initiative that tries to align the banking sector essentially towards the SDGs. We have got guiding principles that have been set up, and these help the banks to be able to behave or invest in environmental and socially responsible opportunities. Now, aligned to that, we have created what we call the Catalyst Awards. And this is a way of recognizing entities that have aligned themselves to the guiding principles, both from the bank's perspective and from the investment opportunity perspective. So the recognition itself is a way of rewarding to ensure that the behavior of the entities will be motivated towards a given direction. So in a way, that is one that I can mention of. The second one, I think, from the banking sector is, as you are aware, just recently, there was a directive from the central bank in terms of banks being aligned to a risk-based pricing framework, where they develop models that effectively the pricing of the loan facility will have to be aligned to the risk assessment of the investment opportunity. And one of the risks, or rather within the portfolio of risks, some of the risks that they are supposed to mitigate against is the ESGs. And therefore, in a way, if an investment opportunity is aligned to the ESGs, and therefore their risk is mitigated in that area, effectively you are rewarded through the pricing, which is a lower pricing effectively. So those are sort of like examples. It may look like far-fetched, but is a way of recognizing or rewarding the impact investment space. Now, you asked me to make some final remarks, and I think this will take less than a few seconds. I go back to my original comment about the fact that there is a positive correlation between financial returns and projects that are aligned for the social and environmental good in society. And if I were an investor, I'll definitely not think twice about looking to put my money on where I've got the highest financial return. And the highest financial return are for those entities that are certainly conscious of the social and environmental good. Thank you.
Habil, I'll try to confine myself within 1 minute. And I think my last word is that I think the team sitting here, of course, led by Arif and Lee here, Impact Investing Kenya identified social enterprise policy as one of the key pillars. And we, as the umbrella body for social enterprises, we look at how we can be able to scale and ensure that Kenya be the first country in Africa to have the social enterprise policy in place. Because, for us, the issue of impact investment, impact revolution to be realized, I think there's a need, we all agree that there's a need for a legal framework. Otherwise, if there's no legal framework for social enterprises, I really doubt if we can achieve much in terms of impact investment. The other thing also I wanted to mention is that I'm really happy. There's a lot of work that has been done on impact investment. And I really, really applaud the UN for doing a lot of work by coming up with the UN principles for responsible investment. That is very, very key. I looked at the impact market report that was released, I think, recently. And it's really talking a lot of things about impact investment. So my compliments to the UN team. Thank you. I think it's good to say that, yes, we will support all the work that is being done, and we are really looking forward to work with you. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I request you to panel Impact Invest Kenya round applause. That you found the session useful and informative, and we request you to watch this space in relation to impact investment. Thank you.
So folks, this has been, for the Kenyan financial sector, a particularly important conversation because it becomes the soft launch of Impact Investing Kenya. When we have the formal launch later this year, we'll be sure to get in touch with all of you and hope you can join this effort. It's about the impact revolution. It's not about any particular institution, organization, or logo. So it's amazing what you can achieve in life when you give credit to everybody else. So let's make sure we make it happen. I'd now like to close today to invite for a sort of a wrap-up chat to gain your insights as well on how you found some of the discussions yesterday and today. Max, kindly to join me and see if we can just have a few minutes of reflections, insights on how you found the sessions. What were the take-home points that you found interesting? What were the issues that seemed a bit ambiguous and need a lot more clarification, and so on and so forth? So it'd be great to hear some insights back from you, but let me invite Max maybe also to say a few words.
I don't see many hands. I think we have, I think our colleagues might be looking for the coffee. But I just thank you all for participating until the very end and even staying over about an hour. It was a very intense 2 days for us. We really appreciate the participation of our private partners, our colleagues in the civil society, from the development community, development finance institutions, and of course all of our colleagues. So on behalf of the UN Joint SDG Fund, let me thank you all for coming. We really appreciated your participation and your insights. We will follow up, so that's not the last time. I'm sure Arif will be steering the work in Kenya, but also from our colleagues and from our side, you will hear from us. So thanks again. This is not the end for our UN friends. So we will meet also tomorrow. So we look indeed to continue the discussion and indeed to reflect how we can best use the convening power of the UN to catalyze SDG financing. So I want to thank you all, and Arif, if you want to join me with thanks, I think we can close the meeting today. There is a final coffee break, so we can have a last exchange between us more informally. So thanks everyone for joining.
Special word of thanks to our colleagues who flew all the way from New York, the SDG Fund, who've given some really amazing awards for various financing instruments across multiple countries in Africa. So thanks, Max, thanks, Elaine, and all the great work that's been going on. And please convey our best to Lisa and the whole team. Thank you.
And our MC, let's thank also a round of applause for our MC that has carried tirelessly until the very, very end.
Thank you so much. Just two quick announcements. I know we're all rushing home or for coffee or for networking. So for those of us who will be coming tomorrow, there'll be a national prayer breakfast happening at the venue. So there'll be quite a bit of traffic. So if you could come a bit earlier, that would be appreciated. And for those interested in site visits, please sign up with Kigen Courier. Then one last special request from the communication teams of both organizers. If you could just please remove your phones right now, just for one, it will only take 1 minute of your time. Just remove your phones. The incentive will come after the fact. We're doing things a bit different. So if you could please remove your phones. Please unlock them. If you have a password, those who have fingerprints, biometric, open your phones. Then the next step is go to your social media account of your choice. It could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, it could be Instagram, or whatever social media appeals to you the most, WhatsApp. Just open it. All right, I see a number of you swiping, so I hope you're opening because we'll be able to see the metrics. If you could just do a tweet to wrap up just your thoughts and your views of the summit with the hashtag SDG Aims. Just that, as simple as that. Your thoughts just to wrap up the summit with the hashtag SDG Aims, because we'll be able to track it. SDG Aims is SDG AIMS. So that's SDG AIMS. SDG Aims. Aims stands for Africa Investment Mobilization Summit. I see a number of us tweeting, number of us looking for our phones. All right, I see half of us have finished. I'll give another 30 seconds. The hashtag is SDG Aims, AIMS. All right. I know some of us are still typing, but you can finish typing. Thank you once again. It has been a real pleasure and hope to see you again soon or in the next summit. Thank you.